We will talk about the same Moses who is considered the founder of Judaism. He freed the Israelites from slavery in Egypt, or rather led them out of Egypt. Many people only know about how Moses led the Jewish people through the desert for 40 years, and a little about manna from heaven and how the sea parted. It is interesting that many sculptures and paintings of the Renaissance show us Moses with horns. And in the literal sense, the prophet's head is decorated with horns, albeit not large ones, but still horns. Even the famous sculpture by Michelangelo, which adorns the tomb of Pope Julius II in the Basilica of San Pietro in Vincoli in Rome, has such horns. Maybe we don't know everything about Moses? Why did Moses grow horns? The famous sculpture of Moses by Michelangelo Buonarroti, who lived in the 16th century, is a majestic work of white marble, 235 centimeters high. This sculpture was created between 1513 and 1515, that is, during the Cinquecento period, when outstanding masters of the High Renaissance worked. The sculpture was made by special order of Pope Julius II for his mausoleum in St. Peter's Basilica, which is located in Rome. In 1505, Pope Julius II ordered his tombstone from Michelangelo, which he deigned to make only 30 years after the Pope's death. The Pope died in 1513, and in 1545, a wall tombstone with 6 statues appeared in the Basilica of San Pietro in Vincoli in Rome, one of which was a statue of Moses with tablets and, as you might have guessed, horns. Michelangelo depicted the biblical Moses from the book of Exodus at the moment when he descends from Mount Sinai, holding the 10 commandments given to him by God. He finds himself among the Israelites indulging in idolatry. At the sight of vice and sin, an expression of sadness and restrained anger appears on Moses' strong-willed face. Surely, at this moment, he thinks about the punishment that God will bring down on the ungrateful people. And one of the most amazing features of Michelangelo's sculpture is the 2 protrusions, in which a pair of small horns growing on the prophet's head are unmistakably recognizable. How did they appear? Perhaps Moses had a wife, or Michelangelo for some reason wanted to demonize the founder of Judaism? In fact, everything is somewhat simpler. The horns on Moses' head owe their appearance to Jerome of Stridon, who at the end of the 4th century decided to translate one Hebrew word in his own way. Jerome of Stridon, considered the father and teacher of the Church, is best known for translating the Bible into Latin. This book was called the Vulgate, and since the 16th century, it has been the official Latin Bible for all Catholics. By all accounts, he did a great job, but there were some quirks, like Moses' horns. When Saint Jerome, doing his painstaking translation, got to verse 29 in chapter 34 of the book of Exodus in the Bible, he came across the word krn, which could be interpreted as Karen, meaning shining, luminous, with rays of light. That would be the most logical translation. Or was it the word Quran, meaning horns? In the context of the Bible, it turned out that when Moses, after talking to God, came down from Mount Sinai, either rays of light were shining on his head, or horns were growing. It is difficult for us to understand the translator's logic, but for some reason he chose the latter option. Although some historians believe that Jerome of Stridon did this intentionally, since he believed that only Jesus Christ was worthy of shining with rays of light. Today, most copies of the Bible translate this passage from Exodus 34 as follows: "And the children of Israel saw that rays of light came out of the face of Moses." But Saint Jerome chose to make a different translation. "And the children of Israel saw that horns came out of the face of Moses." Obviously, Michelangelo decided to follow Saint Jerome's translation and created 2 small horns on Moses' head. It is worth noting that he could not have been unaware of the alternative version of the translation, which spoke of rays of light. Who knows? Maybe he did not know how to depict these very rays and chose a simpler option. Be that as it may, Michelangelo himself, famous not only for his genius but also for his difficult character, always considered the statue of the horned Moses to be his most successful and realistic work. So much so that, as they say, after finishing the sculpture, he fell to his knees in front of it and exclaimed, "Why do you not speak to me?" and there are dozens of such horned Moseses all over the world. So, it didn't immediately occur to anyone that something was wrong here? In ancient times, many important figures were depicted with horns, even Alexander the Great. Let me clarify that Michelangelo was not the first with his horned Moses. The prophet was depicted with horns since the 5th century, when Jerome was alive. A similar story happened with the phrase from the Gospel. It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. Sounds strange, doesn't it? But why does Scripture mention a camel? There are two options. Due to a translator's error, a ship's rope became the camel, and the second option is more likely. The eye of a needle was the name for the narrow gates in Jerusalem, through which a loaded camel would not pass. Such incidents sometimes happen due to translation errors, even if it is a translation of the Bible.